Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmed MUSTAQIM bin Muhammad ZAMRI. My matric number is 1201917. Today I will talk about introduction. In the introduction, it contains title, author, publisher, place of publication, year of publication, pages and chapter. The first one is title. The title for this book review is Muslims, Christians and the Challenge of Interfaith Dialogue. Next, author. The author is Jane Edelman Smith. And the next one is publisher. The publisher is Oxford University Press. Next one is place of publication. The place of publication is New York, United States of America. Next one is year of publication. The year of publication is 2007. And the next one is pages. The book contains 186 pages. And lastly, chapter. The book contains 8 chapters. Chapter 1, Encountering Each Other. Chapter 2, The Legacy of Engagement. Chapter 3, Islam, a Truly American Religion. Chapter 4, Models of Christian-Muslim Dialogue in America. Chapter 5, When Dialogue Goes Wrong. Chapter 6, The Pluralist Imperative Christian Perspectives. Chapter 7, The Pluralist Imperative Muslim Perspective. And lastly, Chapter 8, New Directions in Dialogue.
My name is ABDUL bin SUBARI, matrix number 1201879. 10 items, thought, concept and idea that I gained from this book is, firstly, interfaith dialogue between Muslim and Christian has been going on since long time ago. It has also happened many times, such as dialogue invention by the member of a local ecumenical council who are well versed in talking together as Christian but have not yet had the experience of engaging with members of the Muslim community. The second scene involved African American, Muslim and Christian who are struggling to find God for commonality that both include and move beyond issue of racial identity. The third described interaction between Roman Catholic and Muslim women, raising the question of whether the mode of dialogue is different when men are not involved in the conversation. The second thing that I get from this book is, to make a successful and harmonious interfaith dialogue, we need to understand and study other religions first before making a dialogue. This is to avoid an uncomfortable atmosphere in the interfaith dialogue, such as mixing between a man and a woman in a place which is a prohibited act in Islamic religion.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is AFIQ AZMAN bin MOKSEN and my matrix number is 1201878. Alright, so the next point that we got from this book is about American Muslim women. Until fairly recently, and with a few important exceptions, it has been Muslim men who have participated most actively in dialogue with Christians. Partly because most Muslims, including African Americans, come from societies in which men traditionally interact in the public arena and women generally do not. And it is not surprising that men have been the spokesperson who their respective communities, for their respective communities. Now that situation is changing, to some extent, this may be because non-Muslim Americans are specifically requesting that Muslim women be part of the dialogue. But for the most part, it represents part of a fairly recent movement on the part of American Muslim women, often in concert and communication with college overseas, to reclaim their voices and take a more active role in practice of Islam and in its public advocacy. Especially since September 2011, after which men have been cautious about their public involvement because they do not want to attract the attention of the increasingly vigilant American government. Women have stepped up to describe and defend Islam. To some extent, that has meant their increasing presence and active participation in dialogue sessions, both local and national. And some imams and other religious leaders, including African Americans, have been conservative in their views about women, making open and active participations difficult to achieve. Women increasingly finding their own voices and are justifying their public participation by citing examples of the active roles played by women in the life of the Prophet and the earliest Islamic community.
Next, Islam and the position of religion is not seen by the majority of certain countries that believe in it, but the religion is in the hearts of the believers. For example, they think that Islam is a minority religion in America, while in Arabic country, South and Southeast Asia are probably the most notable Muslims coming from immigrant backgrounds, more and more arriving from Turkey, Eastern Europe, and many countries in Africa. In fact, Islam can be embraced by everyone for anyone who believes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only God and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger regardless of religious background before embracing Islam, whether it is Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and so on. Besides, from this book too show us that some of people have misunderstanding of Islam, such as IS militants and Shia in Iran make followers of the other religions do not believe in Islam and result of Islamophobia. But in the reality of today's world, it is Islam that is oppressed. For example, among refugees from troubled Muslim areas of the world seeking homes in America, such as Kurds, and Africans from countries such as Somalia and Sudan, and Muslims who have experienced the notorious ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslavia. It is difficult for most of them to talk about their religion in the abstract, without basing their explanation on real life experiences that have defined their personal identities and their nationalist sensitivities. Life in the West, although physically less challenging for refugees than it is for them to flee, is often psychologically extremely difficult.
So, from this book, we can acknowledge that Islam is the true religion. The Quran also calls for respect and protection of other religions and their places of worship. For example, the Quran mentioned that had God not repelled some people by means of others, synagogues and churches, mosques and monasteries in which God's name is mentioned, would have been demolished. The Quran also states that God will reward Jews and Christians, as well as all those who commit good things in God's name. This is stated directly in the Quran, chapter number 2, verse number 62. The Prophet himself demonstrated his love for religious diversity when he permitted a group of Christians from Najran to worship in his mosque. He went even further, advocating for a word of commonality between the two populations, between them and the Muslims. Religion is referred to in the Quran by three different terms: Din, Millah, and Sharia. Although these phrases are often used interchangeably to refer to religion, there are differences between them, particularly when examining them from a lexical and linguistic perspective. Next point is, in particular, religious pluralism is the view, the thought, and the belief that such diverse and varied religions have similarities in terms of ontology, soteriology, and epistemology. As Peter Bryant, professor at King College London, UK, points out, religious pluralism is the fertilization of three Ds. First, all the traditions of the great religions of the world are the same, all referring to and hinting at a single transcendent and sacred reality. Second, they all equally offer a path of safety. And third, everything is not finite. This is every religion must always be open to criticism and re-examination. Religious pluralism also does not mean religious tolerance. Islam is indeed a tolerant religion and teach tolerance to its people from the beginning. In fact, Islam has absolutely no problem with religious tolerance. What is problematic is when the teaching of Islam tolerance try to be linked to religious pluralism, because then it is concluded that Islam is a religion that teaches the equality of all religions. The pluralist figures themselves deny that religious tolerance is religious in pluralism.
From this book, I got that Christians continue to encourage theological discussions. They want to undertake to attack or undermine the precepts of Islam, but precisely because they believe that they will grow theologically in their own understanding of their faith by making the hassle persuaded by the assertions of individuals like John Cobb, a firmly Christian theologian who insists that if he has not grown and been transformed through dialogue, it is not really been a dialogue. They need to be receptive, such transforming activity in their own lives. Some Muslims have an interest in participation in theological dialogue because it can help further interfaith understanding, but not because they expect to be told something helpful to their own spiritual development. The next part is some advocates of Muslim-Christian dialogue. Therefore, are adamant that the foremost appropriate arena for discussion between Christians and Muslims is not theology but ethics, or that while ethics are informed by theology, it is the sensible that ought to be stressed over the theoretical. Unfortunately, few Muslims or Christians who have actively engaged in this dialogue have studied ethics as a discipline, and even fewer are at home with the theological, legal, and philosophical source of non-secular ethics. Perhaps a replacement generation of doctoral students will have the courage to hold the language and source necessary to undertake this daunting task.
Okay, my name is Muhammad Hakimi bin Hamzah. My metric number is 1201900. The next part is the methodology of this book. First, this book gives an overview and analysis of the recent history of Christian-Muslim communication in the United States, as well as the ways in which it has been furthered and enhanced in the aftermath of September 11, 2001. Then, the next begins with a brief history of Christian and Muslim relations before moving on to Islam in America, dialogue models, interfaith engagement problems, pluralism as understood by Christian and Muslim, and new avenue for dialogues. The specific example list illustrates some of the types of cooperative gatherings that are taking place, as well as the diversity of thinking among Christians and Muslims about what it means to be in dialogue and to take seriously the part of faith shared by both groups. Lastly, in this book, a study has been conducted to find the main causes of interfaith dialogue problems and challenges that hinder the development of interfaith dialogues. Among the challenges that can be derived from questionnaire analysis and previous studies, it has found that the main challenge in these interfaith dialogues are extremism, mistrust, misconceptions, weakness, and a lack of proper representations also create challenge for Muslims' contribution in interfaith dialogues.
First of all, I want to slightly introduce about this book. This book is entitled Muslims, Christians, and the Challenge Interfaith Dialogue, written by Jane Edelman Smith. It is intended to educate Americans about the great diversity of Muslims in this country while illustrating how Christians and Muslims are coming together not only to talk to each other but to work together for the common good. This book is a fiction category, which is a religion genre. Going back to my main purpose, which is I have good comments on this book. Firstly, this book is well written because insightful. As evidence, John Edelman Smith points to initiatives among young people, women, and African Americans as they attempt to find ways to work together in local projects of justice and community service. Next, for me, this book is deep. It is because in this book told us many Americans realize not only that non-Muslims need to learn more about Islam, but also the Muslim must better understand and articulate their own faith to themselves and others. In this book, John Edelman Smith examines the current American Christian Muslims dialogue. She delves to us what progress has been made through this dialogue, what happens when the dialogue fails, and what direction it will take in the years to come. Besides, this book also masterclass because of unique storytelling. John Edelman Smith argues many Christians and Muslims are expressing their desire to move beyond theological discussion into what is often called the dialogue of engagement. In my research, many people that read this book give low rating, but I don't think this book need to give bad comment because the content is very useful. Maybe they don't fully understand the contents of this book. For your information, the writer, which is John Edelman Smith, is academic dean and professor of history of religions at the ILHAM School of Theology. She is the author of the concept of Islam in the history of Quranic studies, plus co-author with Yvonne Haddad of Islamic Understanding of Death and Resurrection, also editor of Women in Contemporary Muslim Society.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Syed Muhammad HAKIMI bin Syed Abdul Halim. My matric number is 1201958. Okay. For me, learning interfaith dialogue is an important thing in education because it helps us how to talk and interact with the other people that different region kindly. Especially the way to spread the truth in Islam while they stand in their belief religion. The principle of Islamic dialogue based on Al-Quran and Hadith. So, dialogue makers should have a deep knowledge in Islam, especially to ensure they can counter any comments or debate from other religion kindly with well-good attitude, so that they will confident in what is conveyed and attracted to the religion of Islam. For me, this book is very helpful in offering information regarding comparative religious studies and interfaith dialogue. The material are well organized to aid the reader's comprehension of the piece. The writers use several quotations and refer to support his position. For easy comprehension, the author utilized simple language. This book is both informative and useful to me. Thank you.
So, in conclusion, the book is written for a wide range of audiences. Muslim and Christians who have long been involved in their dialogue may find echoes of their own experiences in this material. The church, the mosque, or the community leaders who will like to plan Muslim-Christian dialogue conversation in their own area perhaps benefit from guidance and perspective in learning how to do it. Academic, the audience will be intrigued by the history of Christian-Muslim relations and how current efforts in engagement in the American context are natural and a legitimate part of the relationship. The American public is looking for answers to the question of Islamic extremism and trying to reconcile what they are listening to on the nightly news with the efforts of the American Muslim experts community to approach their Christian neighbors with care and concern. The theologians in both the Christian and Muslim camps who are rethinking the importance of developing a pluralist perspective as Muslims and Christians must again, occupying a common space, must find a way to accommodate each other at the deepest theological level. Thank you.